You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama, Tennessee, syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Friday. Holy cow, what a week, and aren't we glad it is indeed Friday. We got a sound effect for that. Hit it, man. Friday! Yes, indeed. You know, I heard a guy on Fox News say Friday this morning? I think it was Bill Hemmer. I think he stole that from us.
We could argue that, I guess.
We could. And we've been doing it for a while. Anyway, JP on the board. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. It's been a heck of a week. I'm happy it's Friday as well.
Yes, indeed. And it's been a heck of a day. I think we've already had a day.
Yes, we have, yeah.
We just recorded a full-length podcast. Look, we're pretty excited. We'll be announcing something pretty soon. We just spent another hour and a half at the podcast studio before stepping into this studio. So Rightside Media, we ain't sitting still, you know what I'm saying? So the end result is, if you're listening to Rightside Radio, you keep in mind that's only one production of Rightside Media. And yeah, we just very cool interview today. I'm looking forward to that one coming out.
It's a fun interview, yeah.
It was. All right, listen, we got a whole lot of show laid on for you. So coming up at the top of the second hour, State Representative Debbie Wood, who hails from the Valley area down closer to Auburn for our Auburn audience. State Representative Debbie Wood coming on to give us some insights on a bill passing through the legislature, and that'll be in conjunction with one of our dippers. So yeah, we'll have that at the top of the second hour, and then top of the third hour, you know the deal. It's Friday. We got to take a break from politics. We got to set aside some of the stuff that doesn't relate to all the usual things here and get on into something that JP is expert on. Well, he's an expert on a lot of things, but expert on sports. So JP on sports coming up top of hour number 3. And then, oh, by the way, I've still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, you guys, listen. I'm going to tell you right now, we got to talk about some things happening in and around and amongst us. So home fries, we cook up some stories of things that are happening near where we are right now, because you can't forget that what happens in D.C., what happens internationally, is sometimes not going to affect you near as much as what happens in your own backyard. So we'll touch on some things happening around the Southeast and give you guys a big old batch of home fries. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Well, I didn't quite get to it yesterday, so I got to bring it back today, and I even added some to it. There's a phrase or 3 that we use on this show. It's become part of the lexicon of Rightside. And you've heard Jackassery, you've heard Friday, you hear different things we do, and then one of them, Jackassery. We're going to be dealing with some Jackassery, my friends. So all said and done, I got some examples of government action and things that are being done that you look at and think, there ain't no way to explain that except that it's a pile of Jackassery. And then number 3, I don't know if you've seen some of the latest information, but the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, it's a real law, and a real judge just said that the president can't enforce the real law. We're going to talk about alien enemies as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All that and more coming up over the next 3 hours. Let me jump on into the Rightside Way monologue. Rightside Way, brought to you every single day by attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee out of Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran of the practice of law in North Alabama. He's a daily sponsor of the Rightside Way, and I'll tell you more about Stan here momentarily. All right, let me kick this off by just quoting the ultimate in terms of leadership, conservative principles, and the ability to project them through voice. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan once said, "The American dream is not that every man must be level with every other man." He said, "The American dream is that every man must be free to become whatever God intends he should become." I've also seen the American dream, by the way, defined as the belief that anyone, regardless of where they were born or what class they were born into, can attain their version of success in a society in which upward mobility is actually possible for everyone. And I agree with that. But sometimes attaining that dream, the American dream, it does not come from a life filled with complaints. It's kind of interesting because that was sort of the topic of the waning moments of the podcast we just recorded. Is the idea that a life filled with complaints is not going to be what drives you forward. The American dream, it comes from a life filled with appreciation and a willingness to see the complaints as being nothing more than mere obstacles that are left to be overcome. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot to be proud of right now. There's a lot of positive attention being given to the Southeast, where this show broadcasts on the radio regularly, particularly Alabama and Tennessee these days. For example, President Trump was at the University of Alabama's graduation commencement exercises yesterday. And while giving his speech, he bragged on the state, he bragged on the university, he called us a state of champions. And then, just 10 days ago, Kash Patel, director of the FBI, he was here. He called Redstone Arsenal one of the gems in the FBI's crown jewels, saying he wants to let America know about this place and saying it has, quote, capabilities that don't exist anywhere else. I agree with that. And then there was a recent IG report on the location of Space Command that confirmed that original studies had proven that Alabama outpaced all the other competitors to be the chosen location for this major military command. And it was based on quality of life, cost of living, robust capabilities, support structures, ease of access, all of it. And then we just got news yesterday. The Mercedes-Benz plant down in Vance near Tuscaloosa just announced it's going through a major expansion, relocating some of its offshore production to Alabama. I mean, y'all, that's bragging rights all around. And you got to love it. But all that got me to wondering, do people really appreciate where they live? I'm not just talking about Alabama. I'm talking about in general. Do people wake up in the morning, stare at the four walls, drag themselves out into the same old streets, do the same old job? Or do they get where they live? Do they appreciate it? Do they even try to make it better, for that matter? So here's a question that I've asked the audience before, and I'll ask it again. You ready? Why do you live here? Wherever hair happens to be, why do you live here? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm serious. Why do you live here? Doesn't matter what part of my listening area you're in right now. If you're listening on radio somewhere in the Southeast United States or you're streaming online from anywhere else in the world, there's got to be a reason why you have chosen to live where you live. Is it your job? Is it cost of living? Is it because of family or familiarity? I mean, those are all important, but at some point where you hang your hat is still a choice. So we should ask ourselves that question. Why do I live here? Ask ourselves that question periodically because it makes us more mindful of the reasons why we live where we live. And truth is, your home is where you make it. So make it great. Complaining is easy, right? Complaining is super easy. Complaining is a fool's errand. No goodness ever came from mere complaints, only from the action it took to move past the complaints and make something better. So that being said, why do you live here? So me personally, I do. I live in Alabama. I love it here. This is where generations of my family have lived. We've all worked to make our mark in politics and business and the military and our churches and communities. I raised my kids here. And I've been many other places, by the way, to live and work, and I always want to come back. But I'm also not content to just let it be. I want to let it be better. I want my home to be great. And I look at it, and sometimes I try to see it through other people's eyes. I love the way the seasons change in North Alabama and the beaches stay white on our coast. I love how everywhere you go, there's a church steeple somewhere in the distance. I love that in most towns in our state, folks still see their neighbors at the grocery store. Folks are still proud of what they do for a living. Folks still buy magazine subscriptions from their neighbors' kids for the school fundraiser. I can order sweet tea at any restaurant in the state and get it cold. And we have the finest research facilities, medical innovations, manufacturing, small businesses, all of it. And by the way, our entire state is green, and I don't mean in the liberal sense. And I dare you to show me a city anywhere in the state that doesn't have trees and plants. And the veteran community, man, the veteran community here in my state is stronger than most, with a higher per capita level of our citizens having served in the military than the majority of most states. And we thank them for their service, by the way, all year round. Is it possible for Alabama to be better? Yes, 100%. And I would say the same is true of anywhere. I hope you noticed that what I did there was I just took about a minute or two and just told you things that I recognize because I see them, because I quit complaining and saw what is there. 100%. We got a stronger base here to work with than most. And do I get frustrated at the politics? Yes, I do, and the politicians, and I was one. But I'm also glad that we're in the position of trying to become more conservative, as opposed to just desperately trying to find any conservatives. I remember a story when I was in Afghanistan. We do these long-range patrols. I was there towards the beginning of the war. We began doing what we called village assessments. So basically, we would try to get a snapshot of life out in the remote villages, right? In part to find out if they had any interaction with the Taliban or the Al-Qaeda holdouts in our area. Gather up what is commonly referred to as passive intel that gives us a clear picture of our area of operations. But it was also to see if we could do something to help better their lives. And there were times in the mountains of northern Afghanistan where we would be told we were the first Westerners ever seen there. And I remember once talking to a village elder somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And when I got past the get to know you, I'm not going to shoot you phase, he began to tell me how horrible everything was. The Taliban blew up the school building. The mosque has a leaking roof. It has not rained in many months. The crops won't grow. The bombs were dropped on our field. It killed many goats. The well is run dry, and on and on and on. It went on to the point that I finally held up my hand to stop him. And through my interpreter, I asked him, "Why do you live here?" Well, he couldn't believe that I would even ask that question. This was their home. It was where their father and grandfather lived. Okay, fair enough. Well, let's make it better then. If you love a place and call it home, great. I find no fault with choosing to stay where you love, even when it's not the best of the best. But are you going to wallow in your complaints? Are you going to obsessively ruminate on what you don't have? Or are you going to impact your culture, build your community, and make your choice of a home a better place? There was a recent story out of Dearborn, Michigan. A large crowd gathered as part of an Islamic religious holiday. Now, I've been to Dearborn. It's a different environment than what I'm used to in Alabama, but it's actually really solid. A lot of great folks there. Just salt of the earth. Some of the politics stink, but the folks are salt of the earth, and the scenery is amazing. But this crowd gathered, and under the leadership of a so-called Islamic teacher, they began to shout death to America. Like while they're here in America, shouting death to America. Absorbing all that comes from being a citizen, or at least a resident of the nation that does more, has more, means more than any on the face of the planet, they were yelling death to America. Okay, so why do they live here? I mean, we could start a GoFundMe account and get them a set of plane tickets, and in no time have them all on their way to places where they can shout death to America while not having to also breathe our air. They're so busy complaining, so busy hating, that they've lost sight of what they have. Because in my opinion, the American dream is still very much alive. It's getting battered and tattered in some places, but it is still very much alive. And it's not because America is out there that it's great. It's because of the America where you live. That's the point. It's where you live that matters. You can be a part of the big picture, certainly, but you have to make your part better before the big picture gets better. It's the adding up of all the parts getting better that makes the whole thing great. So why do you live here? Why do I live here? Truthfully, my own right here is in North Alabama because there's no place I'd rather be. And we can complain, but we can't let ourselves wallow in those complaints. Like the quote from Shawshank Redemption, you can get busy living or get busy dying. All said and done, I know why I live here. And yes, it's partly for proximity to family and the sense of familiarity that I have in Alabama, but it's also because I've seen so much else of the world and our nation, and I know what we've got. I know what we can be. So why do you live here? And what are you going to do about it? It's a real question. Process it. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, really, that older guy that I met in the village in Afghanistan, I mean, I literally had to stop and say, why do you live here? And he was taken aback. But the truth is, he could find nothing good to say. Nothing. And I meet people like that now on the streets of Alabama once in a while. If you read the press, you'll swear that nothing good is happening here. I got news. There's a lot of good happening here. There's a lot of good happening wherever you happen to be right now listening to this. Make it better. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, it is Friday afternoon, and I got to remind you before I go any further that the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue is indeed Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald is a lawyer up in Huntsville, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law across all of North Alabama. Listen, not only is Stan the kind of guy, too, who can advocate quite well for your legal needs, and I mean that, he's also the guy who's been an absolute warrior on the causes and the politics that right-side ruffians care about. So he's an OG ruffian from way back. Attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So yeah, Attorney Stan McDonald, at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. I'm going to tell you how to reach him. You ready? Here's his phone number. 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio, please, very much. Oh, yeah. No representation made. The quality legal service be performed is great. The quality legal service for all the lawyers. I'm just...
Holy cow, man.
Just shabam. Rate it. Give it a rating.
I want to give it a 10, but I also feel like I just...
You just can't quite go there, can you?
I think 9. You're teetering on the 9.
Oh, God, teetering.
But I'm sure a bunch of listeners will say that's a 10.
I'll have you know I've never teetered on anything in my entire life. All right, text lines are open, you guys. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Same number for both. Let me take a few right now. Shag Nasty the Atheist, taking in already, says, let's take a poll. How many veterans support Trump's rebranding of Veterans Day? See y'all at the midterms. How much Trump's rebranding of Veterans Day? Do we even know what he's talking about?
No.
Okay. He said, how much money is Koch and the Heritage Foundation going to keep throwing at Trump for him to burn all his goodwill? Shag. Let me ask you this. What policy do you stand for? Tell me. I know you're listening right now. Tell me this. As opposed to just hating Trump, tell me, if you had Kamala in office, what is one policy that you believe that she would have done so well that we would all be excited to have her as president? Just ask it. Tony from Franklin, Tennessee says, I wonder if Cash had grits while he's in Huntsville. I don't know. Said, I love the South. I've traveled all over it, and I love the South. Tony, thank you, man. John from Huntsville, Phil, fantastic monologue. Also, just want to say I thought everything Trump said that wasn't about the University of Alabama was absolutely amazing. He says, by the way, JP, thanks for fixing the microphone problem on YouTube. You get 10 extra credit points. That's because we were making double use of one of the cameras, and it had the camera mic was still on. So
yep. Well, I will take the 10 extra points gratefully. Thank you.
Although, since you're the one who put the camera back in place, do you have to first deduct the points and then get them back and come back to a ground zero?
I don't think. I think we're twisting ourselves in knots now.
I'm sorry. All right, listen, the music's playing. We're taking a break. I'll come right back. And yeah, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. It goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga and from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to the loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, I got somebody hung on the line during the break, so let me honor her time. Dana from North Alabama, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I heard the first thing that come out of Shag Nasty's message or whatever it was y'all got. And I wanted to let you know, yes, there is some kind of proposal going on. I heard about it this morning on our local talk radio station that's on this channel.
Uh-huh.
But it's like Dale Jackson was talking about it with one of the congressmen this morning. And apparently Trump has put out a proposal to change Veterans Day to Victory Day World War I and then have like May 8th or something be Victory Day World War II. Because he says we won both of them, we should celebrate both of them and, make it a Victory Day rather than Veterans Day. I think it's crap. If he wants to do that, I think he should do a Victory Day for World War I and World War II, but don't mess with Veterans Day. Our veterans deserve a day. They deserve a month. They deserve every day of the year.
Well, as one of them, I totally agree, Dana. Thank you very much. And I'll be honest with you. I think there are times when we have a president right now who's so transparent he'll think out loud, and I really don't think that's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But I heard you and JP talking, and you were like, what is he talking about the Veterans Day thing? So I didn't know if either one of y'all had heard that.
All right. Nope, I hadn't heard it, and I don't know that I'll ever hear it again, to be honest. but thank you.
I think you might can find it on X, seriously, because it was something Trump was talking about.
Okay. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate you.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Chris from Starrett also says Trump plans to change Veterans Day. Okay, we'll see. It's military.com or militarytimes.com, which is like, the Axios of military news. So we'll see. Chris from Gadsden. So if you're talking about people, things, etc., stuck in the mire and not changing or getting out of the situation or location, you're really talking about Auburn football, aren't you? No, Chris, actually I wasn't. I think a new poll just recently came out showing the preseason rankings has Auburn and Alabama both in the top 15. Thank you very much. Hugh Freeze hadn't lost his job yet.
I don't know what preseason poll you're looking at.
I just saw it. JD from Hartselle says, how sad is Shag Nasty's life that he sits and listens every day to media that he hates and disagrees with? I'd rather pound sand than listen to liberal pundits all day. Well, I have a sense that Shag is actually a closet Republican who is just playing the foil to my comments.
And we're the cure to,
that is true.
Keep listening.
There's a cure for those ails, and we're it.
Yeah.
Dave from Capshaw says, Phil, yesterday when you were talking about the possibility of NIL at high school level, did you say it's possible that local communities might raise taxes to pay for it? Eventually someone will say it's not fair to all students. They want to pay all students. It never ends. Yeah, Dave, that's what I surmised. If you go look right now, you'll find more than once there have been, not more than once, a lot. There'll be ad valorem taxes raised purely at the local level, or things like a local lodging tax or a local rental tax. They do these local taxes all the time, and 9 times out of 10, they're to help, quote unquote, fund education. And so what that does is it buys new school buses or whatever. But let's be honest, money's fungible. And so I could see them saying, if we're ever going to win the state championship, fellers, we got to have a tax raise. And then you watch. If we put NIL in high schools, somebody will propose that. Mark my words.
And stay tuned. I'll be talking about that exact thing later today.
Well, have mercy. Just a prelude there to JP on Sports at the top of the third hour. Chef Ben, there he is. Hey, Chef Ben. Chef Ben from Aniana says 256 for life. Most beautiful place on earth. I'm digging it, man. Jay from Killen says, Islam does not recognize any government that is not based on the Quran. And he's got a long text here, so I won't read all of it. He said, those Muslims shouting death to America in Dearborn, Michigan are here to accomplish just that, not to enjoy our freedoms and culture. Well, and then he talks about what's happened in Europe. Yeah, absolutely. I think there is some of that. I can't say it's that way for everybody, but I could say there's definitely been a move towards that. And in some places, they do create enclaves, absolute enclaves with a refusal to assimilate and become a part of the fabric of America. They want to wave their own flags. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, took a little trip to St. Louis this weekend eating at Pappy's Barbecue. Oh, did you see that? Are those dry rub ribs? Oh, man. Okay, I'm officially food jealous right now because it's always about the food. Sean from Elkmont checking in says, another great one, Phil, about the monologue, I guess. He says, I heard a quote that, quote, whatever you are not changing, you are choosing. Wow. There's a bumper sticker. I'd like to know who said that. Allie from Athens, last text, and I'll jump into my materials. Says, Colonel, I have a question. Seeing as what we now call Veterans Day was originally Armistice Day and commemorated the end of World War I, couldn't we perhaps have 2 victory days for those 2 wars to end all wars, as well as a Veterans Day? I suspect we could. That's kind of what Dana said a moment ago. If we're going to do that, then don't do away with purely Veterans Day. Don't just make it a victory day for one war because, I'm a veteran of Afghanistan, Iraq. My dad was a veteran of Vietnam. My granddad was World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Do we celebrate the efforts of one over the others? Some were bigger than others, but the sacrifices were the same. All right. Listen, let me jump on in here. So you know the deal. Every once in a while, I look at the news and I realize there's a lot going on right here in the backyard, if you know what I'm saying. Coming up in a little while, we're going to have Representative Wood, who is in the State House, and she from Alabama, and she has got a bill we're going to be talking about. But let me just jump on into a few things you might want to know. We like to call this home fries. Oh, yeah, cook them up. Cook them up. Story on Fox News. We've got President Donald Trump last night at Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It was quite the event, by the way, and it was a lot of fun. And did I not send you some audio clips from that? I did, didn't I? Double check that. I'm pretty sure I did. But no.
I mean, I can go find some if you want me to.
Well, you know what? I know I meant to. But it was like at 4:30 or 5 this morning, so. But yeah, so Donald Trump was in Tuscaloosa last night, and he gave a great commencement speech. What was fun was not just the fact that he was here, right? What was fun was not just the fact that he was honoring students and giving them a perspective on life that is worth having, but the fact is he was also here. He was honoring our state, and I love that. He literally said great things about where we are, who we are, why he loves coming down here. But what I also loved was the response he got. Did you watch any of it, JP? Did you see any of it?
I watched about half of it before I had to go do something else. But yeah.
Yeah. So the when he first came out, he took the stage and right after Nick Saban. I know you're going to say something about him standing behind the presidential seal. It means nothing to me. But Nick Saban introduced him, and then he brought him on stage. And the crowd began shouting, USA, USA, USA. I mean, to me, it was viral. That's the kind of thing you saw at a Trump rally when he was running for office in front of thousands of the base, the voters. This time he shows up in a place where anyone could be there because you don't come to the event because of any other reason than allegedly because you're graduating. And the families of those who want to see the graduate, get their diploma. So you got a mixed bag, and the crowd's still going USA, USA. Now we're in Alabama; it's a red state. It sure is. They did have a protest down the street, though.
Yep.
A significant gathering, I understand.
One of the most pitiful things I've ever seen.
Do you hear the mocking in my voice right
yes.
now? Yeah, but Trump did. Here I am, an Auburn fan, but Trump did, basically just point out that, he dominated in the state's election last year. He came down here to honor us. He had Tommy Tuberville flew down with him. I've seen pictures of them on Air Force One together. And then he points out that not only is Alabama a great football school, it's now one of the nation's best basketball schools. So he was honoring the sports programs. He honored the women's sports. He also honored a lot to do with just the culture, the fabric of who we are. And I thought it was awesome. He also, by the way, had some classic Trump moments. Like, did you see the part where he was mocking transgenders in women's sports?
I didn't see it live. I saw the clip of it, yeah.
The whole thing with, the lifting weights thing. Yeah, it was. So he's giving his speech, And he's looking, and he says, as long as I'm president, we will always protect women's sports. Men will not play in women's sports. The crowd went wild. It was actually the longest and loudest applause of the evening, was that particular moment. And he says this, he goes, no way they can say this is an 80-20 issue. It's a 97-3 issue, he said, I think. He said, no men will be playing in women's sports. I said that. I classified it with a very powerful executive order. As you know, it's done. So think about that. Longest and loudest applause of the evening on that particular moment. But then there's the protest down the street. From redstate.com, no less. Oh, by the way, they actually quoted our friend Dale Jackson. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Dale Jackson, shout out from Red State from a tweet that he put out about this very thing. So last night you had the Democrats hold their, what do they call that? The Tide Against Trump.
Tide Against Trump, yeah.
Tide Against Trump rally. How many people showed up? Do we know? Was it
I don't.
like maybe dozens?
Yeah. The dozens and dozens.
Dozens of them showed up. Anyway, they were at a place called Snow Hinton Park, which was not too far from the campus. It's an off-campus place, right? Off-campus park.
Yeah, it's just right off campus.
Yeah. The college Democrats, the state Democratic Party, held their Tide Against Trump rally from 5 to 7. Their guest speakers, Texas Beto O'Rourke and U.S. Senator Doug Jones. Full credit to my friend Dale Jackson, who said, so what they did was they brought in a 2-time loser and a one-hit wonder.
It's true.
It's true.
That's
the best they could bring.
It was pitiful, let me just say. And I didn't see a bunch of college kids there. I saw a bunch of middle-aged, upset, miserable adults showing up to that. I did not see this uprising of college students. It was a bunch of old, miserable people is what I saw.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, here's a quote from Dale Jackson on Red State's article. So Red State points out this was the best the Democrats could muster, and Alabama radio host Dale Jackson weighed the protesters in the balance and found them wanting. Said Dale Jackson, Tide Against Trump is the business casual protest that will be going on for 4 hours at a random park in Tuscaloosa because Trump's giving a speech on campus. It's cosplaying as revolutionaries.
He's right. He's right.
And then he said, come on, stand in the schoolhouse door or dress as Confederates and take on the tyrant. This is weak. That was too funny.
By the way, why Beto O'Rourke?
Why Beto O'Rourke?
I don't get that.
Maybe he's vying to take David Hogg's place at the DNC.
Like, I get Doug Jones, even though he's pitiful himself. He is from Alabama, but Beto O'Rourke, you gotta do better than that.
Doug Jones is all they've got in Alabama.
Yeah, that's
he's
true.
the only leader they've got in Alabama. Now we have two members of Congress, but I don't think Shamari Figures and Terry Sewell even have name ID outside their districts.
I think I saw Kyle Schweitzer, whatever his name is, was there too. It's like, come on, guys.
Kyle Swisher-Sweet is he was there. He's running for Tuberville's seat as a Democrat who can swear he used to be a Republican. Okay, good luck with that. All right, there you go. That's the first part of Home Fries. We'll come back and I'll get into a few other things that are related. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Hey, so part of Home Fries is the fact that Tennessee's legislature just got out of session. So Tennessee's safer. And the Alabama legislature is finishing up. So as a part of the overall process of legislative action at the state level, you'd be amazed how many laws get passed that deal with things that you would not expect. And then sometimes there's other things that you absolutely not only expect, but you would require. One of those things we're going to talk about with State Representative Debbie Wood coming up here at the top of the hour is another piece of legislation at the state level to make our election laws cleaner, tighter, more functional. And I look forward to hearing what she has to say about it. Stay tuned for that. Back to Home Fries, a couple things that are happening. I've got a piece here from Tennessee. So I find this interesting. I don't know how they're going to work this, actually. But I got a piece off of WKRN out of Nashville. So in a push to incentivize teachers to meet and exceed expectations, Governor Bill Lee just signed a bill passed by the Tennessee legislature that allows school districts to implement merit-based pay. Interesting. For high-performing educators. And some teachers automatically worry it'll backfire. So I guarantee I can hear the arguments already. You know, we have tried in the past, I'll never forget this, having a piece of legislation that just made sense. It said in a reduction in force, you cannot, like if you have to do a reduction in force, you could not consider tenure as the number one factor. Well, immediately the teachers union went bananas. You know why? Because the worst teachers are not always the young ones. The worst teachers are sometimes the ones who retired on the job, if you know what I mean. I don't say that across the board, but I say that as just being a reality. So we had a situation, the reason why this legislation came up is we had a situation in Prattville, Alabama. The teacher of the year, who was only a second-year teacher, the teacher of the year, they had a reduction in force, which meant that it was beyond what, could be, it was basically outside of the control of the school board. They had a smaller student body. They had to reduce the teachers' contracts. The very first person who was let go was the previous teacher of the year because she did not yet have tenure. Does that make sense to you? No. You want to keep the best, reward the best, incentivize the best, and incentivize the worst to become the best. And yet, what they did in Prattville was give us a reason to try and pass a piece of legislation, which, by the way, you couldn't get enough so-called conservative Republicans on board with that one because it was scary for the teachers union. Well, they passed something similar in Tennessee. They actually got it to work. It's not necessarily about reductions in force. It's more along the lines of incentivizing on the job. And they're talking about now giving merit pay. Now, we did something when I was in the legislature. If you become a national board certified teacher, an MBCT, a national board certified teacher, which is a higher level of qualification, it takes a long time to get there. But if you can get your MBCT certification in the state of Alabama, we passed a bill when I was in to give an additional $5,000 a year to that teacher, no matter what level they're at. That's a big doings, y'all. In Tennessee right now, what they're talking about is with no specific standards per se, they just authorized at the local level for them to give bonuses and incentives to teachers for exceeding expectations. How does that work? I don't know. I don't think they do either. And I think the teachers union is now freaking out because now people can't retire on the job. And you got one, Democrat, a representative from Gloria Johnson from Knoxville saying, merit-based plans only work to split the staff. Really? No. They help the best to rise to the top and reward people for doing a good job. She says teachers in well-funded, well-supported schools with well-fed students who have plenty of support may like this idea. Look, here's the thing. It's like what I said in my monologue a while ago. You love where you live? Make it better. You don't love where you live by rewarding mediocrity. You don't love where you live by rewarding failure. One other bill from Tennessee, by the way. This is important. Tennessee governor signs a bill. Got this from the Christian Post, Dateline 2 days ago. Tennessee governor signs the bill providing conscience protections for healthcare workers. What that basically means is a medical provider cannot be forced to do something that violates their religion. In other words, you can't be a doctor in a hospital who's opposed to abortion on religious grounds and then be forced to commit to an abortion. You can't be forced to do transgender surgeries on children. You can't have your job threatened because you wouldn't do, hormone therapy on 10-year-olds. Good law. Very good law. All right, more on that and more on stuff with State Representative Debbie Wood, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 already. Golly, where'd the first hour go? Hour number 2 on a Friday afternoon. So we've been doing what I like to call cooking up a batch of home fries for a while, talking about things that are happening in and around and amongst us, because I say it all the time, but I mean it. What happens in D.C. is important. What happens sometimes internationally is important. But what can really, really affect your life on a regular basis is what happens in your own backyard, especially in your state capitals. You know, as a former member of the Alabama Senate, I can just tell you, I was shocked when I got down there thinking that I already understood. And then when I got there, I really became clear on how much happens in our state capitals that impacts our daily lives. All right, well, somebody who knows that quite well is on the phone right now. So State Representative Debbie Wood is a Republican member of the Alabama House of Representatives. She represents District 38, hailing from the Valley area down yonder in East Alabama. She's also, by the way, just like every other member of the legislature, she's got a business interest outside of the practice of politics. She's a real estate business owner down in Valley, and she's formerly a member of the county commission. Let me quit talking and bring her on. State Representative Debbie Wood, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your program today. I really appreciate it.
No.
And you did a great introduction.
Well, good. You're welcome to record it and play it everywhere you go.
Wow, that was pretty good.
Hey, and by the way, just a point of trivia here. So I used to be a battalion commander in the National Guard, and one of my companies was in Valley. And I did not know that Valley is one of the few communities in Alabama on the Eastern time zone, isn't it?
Eastern time. Yes. It messes with a lot of people because when they make an appointment and they don't know that, they're either really late or they can be early. So, we're on Eastern time.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're one of the few places in Alabama. Hopefully we can just keep you on track. But, hey, listen, you got to...
Do you know why?
I'm sorry. Why?
Do you know why we're on these? Did they ever tell you why?
No. Because is there a history to it?
Our town was built by West Point. No, yeah. Our town was built by West Point Pepperell.
Yeah.
We had 4 small mill communities, and their corporate headquarters was in West Point, Georgia, which is on Eastern time. So they ran the mills on Eastern time.
No kidding. So it was like a business thing,
Yeah,
not just
that's
like...
why.
I just thought they drew a straight line down, and that was this Cott Valley.
No. No, it had to do with our industrial base, and they told us what time zone that we would work on, and we did it.
Wow. No kidding. All right. Well, listen, let me talk about some politics with you. So the state legislature is in its final days of the 2025 session. You guys, what, next week, the last week, or do you have a little after that?
Well, we're actually going to go 2 days next week, what they're telling us, and then we're going to come back the following Tuesday probably or Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes there are bills that the governor will not sign, and we'll have to wait those 7 days, and if she doesn't veto those bills, they will still pass without her signature. She really doesn't like to sign bills that have pay increases, like for individuals in the branches or different things. So we'll come back. We'll save that final day.
Yeah, I've seen that many times. You have to come back and do a back cleanup, I call it. You've got one bill that is still in the works right now, House Bill 30. And this one deals with elections and particularly post-election audits. So tell us about the bill and tell us where it is in the process. Do we still have time to get it passed?
Well, the bill, we have 2 more days basically to get it on the calendar. It's already passed the House. It's already passed the committee in the Senate, and it was on actually the calendar on Thursday. But of course, they closed down early because Trump was in town and people wanted to be there to greet him and thank him for coming to our state. So they dismissed at 1 o'clock. And so they did get through the Alpha health care bill, which was amazing. That will help the farmers across the state. I'm very excited. But, of course, I was disappointed because my bill was 2 bills after that bill, and they just ran out of time. So now there is a race to get it back on the calendar, to ask those in leadership to put it back on there so that we will have post-election audits in Alabama. We're the last state in the United States to not have some type of post-election audit.
All right, so post-election audit. Some people who may not know get concerned that what we're talking about is changing the outcome of an election. This is not that. This is basically a best practices. So
no,
tell
and
us
it
about
does not prevent anyone from voting. Does not prevent you from voting. This is a way for us to make sure that the tabulators that we use, the process we use in Alabama, you vote on a paper ballot. That paper ballot is counted through a machine. Most of those machines in the state of Alabama are over 10 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't have a cell phone that's 10 years old. I'm sure you don't have a computer that you use to do important things that's that old. We're counting our votes with the machine, first of all, that's programmed by a company. It is programmed, and it is aged. So we need to have a process to ensure that we are protecting the voters, the vote in Alabama. And that's what this will do. One precinct, one race in each county to ensure that those machines are working properly.
So okay, so you do random sampling for the post-election audit. It's not like every single tabulator has to be audited. You're not creating a huge a huge burden on the budget, basically.
The fiscal note is minimal. It's about $35,000 across the state.
Wow.
The probate judges, if they have a clean machine that has not been used during the voting process, they can use the machine, the tabulator, to count. But 30 of the ballots must be pulled and hand counted from that sample. We want to ensure that we have the correct votes in the machine. Angela Shepard was the one who put a copied ballot in the tabulator, and it counted it. That really concerns me.
Wow. Hang on a second. Back that up real quick. You're
Sure.
saying, Angela, who helped me coordinate getting you on the show today, you're saying that she actually ran a copied of a ballot, not the original, but the actual copy, and it got counted anyway. She
went to the testing center prior to the election where the testing of the machines, she thought it'll kick it out. It didn't. It counted 8 of her copied ballots.
Wow.
Those machines, the machines that we use in Alabama, will count a copied ballot. That's why we're so concerned about this. And if she figured that out all on her own, who else knows that?
Well, you're right. And, I can also think of some results. In fact, from down yonder in your neck of the woods, right down the road in Auburn, State Senator Tom Whatley lost his election by one single vote. And you'd love to know the tabulators could be, reconciled to make sure everything was good. But that's one vote that changed an entire election.
You're talking to a lady that won by 6.
Oh, wow.
If you're playing football on a Saturday, 6 is a great way to win. But when you've won by 6, you really start to appreciate the voters. You start to appreciate the votes, and you want to ensure that the votes are counted correctly. And we owe that to people who stand in line. We owe that to people that take off work. We owe that to people that go to pick up their neighbor, that their votes count, that are legal good votes, and the ones that aren't are not counted.
Representative
we need
Wood,
this post-election audit bill, and I...
Go ahead.
Yes, sir?
Go ahead and finish that.
I just appreciate you for helping us shine a light. We need this bill to pass.
Well, I agree. I totally agree. So let me ask you this. First of all, who's carrying it for you in the Senate? Because for those who don't know, a representative can't go to the floor of the Senate and argue their own bill. They have to have either another sponsor or maybe a companion bill just like it. But who's carrying it for you in the Senate?
Senator Greg Albritton is carrying it in the Senate.
Okay, that's great. Greg Albritton's a good guy. He's a budget chairman. He's a member of leadership. So
he's a great guy.
All right, so that being said...
And I'd love for you to give him a call and thank him.
Well, I may do it. I still got his cell phone number. Greg and I served together pretty well. We both wore the same boots every day in the Senate floor and talked about being the Wonder Twins. But so the reality is you've got a bill...
You're both from... You have a military background. That's great.
We do. So your bill right now with 2 legislative days left to really work is hopefully going to get put back on the calendar pretty soon. So basically what you're hearing, folks out there who are listening right now, we have a huge audience across Alabama, to include down in your way, by the way, coming out of WANI out of Auburn. You just know this: call your representatives, or excuse me, call your senators, especially because it's in their house now, and get them to bring that bill to the floor. Hey, let me ask you real quick. We got about a minute left.
So that's what we need.
Debbie, real quick before you go, what are the other big ticket items that are still left to be done for you that you see with about a minute left here in the 2 days of legislative time we have left?
Well, I think that we just finished last week. We had a monumental week. We passed the RAISE Act that will fund education differently than we have done it for the whole time we've been here. Foundation funding will still be available, which means that schools will be funded by how many students, but they will also be funded by their needs. We have schools in rural areas that are hurting. They have children that have EL students. They have children that have disabilities. They have children that are gifted, and they're not being funded because they're only getting foundation funded. Starting next year, schools will actually be funded by their needs for the first time ever in the state of Alabama. Yes. And I don't want to talk about what's left, but I want to talk about how great that is going to be for our state. We did something, it's been tough to get people to understand it, that's been needed in this state for years, and we finally got it passed this year. I am super excited about that. Yes, there's some other things, some heavy lifts that we still need to do, but Alpha getting cleared, that bill getting cleared was huge last week. And, well, this week. Seems like it was last week, but it was this week at the close of session. So I'm just excited about that. There's just been some people that are really doing some heavy things in our state, out-of-the-box things that I'm excited about.
All right, well, good enough. We got to leave it there. State Representative Debbie Wood, Republican from Valley, House District 38. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
You too. All right, take me to the break, JP. We'll come right back. We'll back clean up on this and then head into Dipper number 2. Going to talk about some Jackassery. Oh, yeah, we are. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Got several text messages. I got to tell you, though, before I go any further, I was going to throw this out there, JP. I get concerned when I hear that every state in the nation has already done something worthwhile. I mean, I'm not looking to just follow the crowd. But what in the world would hold up Alabama from not doing post-election audits? And why has it been a hang-up? I don't even recall hearing that before.
It's just one of those common sense things that you're like, why? Especially with a Republican supermajority, there's too many stuff like that where I'm like, that's kind of low-hanging fruit.
I mean, at this point, if the states that really do a bad job at their elections, like California, that takes a month to count their polls, if they're doing it, how is it we're not doing it?
Yeah, I don't know. Surely it's going to get passed, this session, you would hope.
Part of me wants to know, what's the rest of that story? Is there more to this? Is it possible that we used to do it and we quit doing it because it was a really bad thing? But I don't think so. I think this makes sense. And I can remember, too, being a county party chairman, and I had to go help do what's called certifying the machines before each election. And we would stand there with the clerk, and there'd be one representative from the Democrat Party, one representative from the Republican Party, usually the chairman, me, in that case, and we would actually test the machines, and we'd do a random sampling of testing the machines, and then we would write down that we had been there and seen them and certified them for use. And now I'm finding out that there are people who can still run copies through some machines in some counties.
Well, and people may think, oh, what's the big deal? But she said she won her race by 6 votes.
6?
You brought up that other race where it was 1 vote.
Tom Watley, Senator Watley.
So it's like these are thin margins, and that go a long way.
They go a long way. And the last thing you want is somebody slip something in, or B, here's the other one, it didn't get counted. Like the machine, like it spun fast, or it grabbed 2 pages at one time and took them in. Somebody didn't feed it correctly. Who knows? It was upside down. I don't know. Human error. Then again, computer error. And I was amazed how much stuff we have in our election processes that is still sort of what I would call stubby pencil and paper.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
We're the United States of America, and it seems like this should be.
And there are some parts of that I like. Like I'm for paper ballots. Mm-hmm. Bring a paper ballot. The machine can count it, but bring a paper ballot. Don't do this like we had the hanging chads where you have to poke a hole, or do the electronic where it can be corrupted. Mm-hmm. Anyway, more to come, but we'll see where HB 30, House Bill 30 goes in Alabama in the days to come. A few text messages. Lisa from Huntsville says, I saw a little bit of Trump's speech before I went to bed last night. Awesome. So the last time I saw that many students so excited was when I was at the University of Alabama and Ronald Reagan made an appearance. I did not recall that. He said, as a proud alum of UA, I am very proud he was there and spoke. I guess the pearl-clutching, embarrassed alums haven't figured out that a great majority of these students actually voted for Trump. I think that's probably true.
Well, so the top parts of Coleman, like kind of on the sides, there was some empty seats. Apparently, there were reports that some teacher and faculty members bought up a bunch of seats and left them empty on purpose, is what I saw on Twitter, which is not surprising. It's
there's. Let's not forget. I mean, the University of Alabama has still had massive problems with DEI. Mm-hmm. University of Alabama is also where the foundations of critical race theory come from. Did you know that?
I do, yeah.
2 emeritus law professors, and I'll think of their names here in a minute, husband and wife team, even though she doesn't use his last name, at University of Alabama Law School, and they are the progenitors, the founders of critical race theory, and still teach it from University of Alabama. You looking them up right now? Tell me their names. It was like a Spanish name on one of them. I'll think of it here in a moment, but it's pretty significant.
Richard Delgado and Gene Stefancic.
Yep.
Stefancic.
That's them. Husband and wife, founders of critical race theory, University of Alabama.
But unfortunately, when you get into like a deep red part like that, the liberals there are just more radical because of how conservative it is. So
one little blue dot in the bigger red state.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris from Starrett, Alabama says, regarding that conversation a while ago about the merit-based legislation, says, merit-based retention and promotion works in the world's greatest military. Why wouldn't it work to better our schools? Point taken. At Chelsea High School, he said, honor students award teachers at the end of the year. That should let you know who should stay. Wow. Honor students award. Okay, I guess that's what he's saying. Anyway, still very cool. Flip from Priceville says, I liked it when Trump told the story of when Tuberville was running for Senate and Trump asked him why he would run for the Senate after beating Alabama 6 times in a row. And Tuberville replied, because I got them Saban.
Perfect answer.
Probably is. And then Shag Nasty the Atheist says, paper ballots all the way. As a former IT administrator, there's nothing less secure than computerized voting. Shag, you and I do agree. There's hope for the world. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. I mean, on radio, it goes from Huntsville all the way over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, down to that loveless little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to, yes, indeed, what we now get to call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio part. That's not to mention the fact that we got streaming going everywhere right now. You can pick it up from rightsidemedia.org. You can pick it up from our YouTube channel. You can pick it up from, goodness, we're all over the place. As proof of which, I now bring you a text from Matthew from Washington. Ta-da! You like the segue there?
I do. That was nice.
Matthew from Washington, we appreciate you. He says, hello, Phil and JP. Matthew from Washington checking in with y'all. Great program as usual all week long. Happy Friday. Hope y'all have a great weekend. Oh, by the way, he said, I ordered my Right Side merchandise. Can't wait to wear it up here and watch the fireworks. LOL. He says, y'all keep on rocking. Y'all continue to keep me focused, and we're determined to finish up what we need to do to get back home. Matthew, blessings on you out there on the left coast. You are definitely at the Alamo, but we are glad you are part of the Right Side Ruffian community. And yeah, man, you have a great weekend too. And I'm excited about him wearing, a Right Side T-shirt or whatever merch he got.
And the deeply liberal blue Washington, they need some light in there. So
just go on in there like a champ at your next board meeting, drinking from a Right Side mug. Which brings up a point. I guess I need to point this out. We do have a merch store. So if you want T-shirts, coffee mugs, hats, stickers, or for that matter, you want one of our bin shot glasses that has a 308 round embedded in the glass while it says Right Side Media Bulletproof Influence on the side of it. It's engraved in the glass. Very cool. Check it out. You can find it all at the Right Side Media shop on rightsidemedia.org, along with everything else. To include today's Friday, so we got the latest podcast up from Birdman, right?
Yep.
Birdman, who does his conservative commentary with the backdrop being gaming and high tech, came out today.
This is talking about Microsoft's response to the tariffs, which you can imagine is not very nice.
Okay.
So go check it out.
Birdman can usually nail it. All right, let me do this. I'm going to jump on in with Dipper number 2. Coming up top of the hour, we'll switch over to do a little sports with JP. But right now, listen, every once in a while, we coin a phrase around here and it just sticks. We just have our own lexicon, our own dictionary, the right side vernacular, if you will. And one of those words that we like to say is when you see something happening in an official capacity and it makes absolutely no sense and it needs to get rectified right away, what you're looking at is at least a pile of jackassery. Yes. So you may wind up burning up that sound effect here in a few minutes. Here's one for you. Daily Caller. Dateline yesterday, 2 days ago. The FBI recently reportedly ordered the reassignment of several agents who were photographed kneeling at George Floyd protests. What in God's name? So first of all, let's get this. Let's picture this. You're at the FBI. You investigate crime. So you go to the protests. Maybe you're there to, help secure the streets. But instead, you go to the total performative, virtue signaling mode and decide to kneel down with the protesters. Well, the FBI under Kash Patel is having none of it. So the picture was captured with these agents who were kneeling during a 2020 protest after George Floyd's death. The Bureau told the Daily Caller, it's our standard practice to decline to comment on personnel matters. Okay. The reassignments, though, are being seen as demotions within the FBI. Before the kneeling agent incident, it says a group of agents were guarding federal buildings and monuments when they were, quote, confronted by a group of protesters, prompting them to kneel to reduce tensions. Let me make something real clear. These protesters, the liberal left, they do not want you to kneel. They want you to kneel and never get up. So once you've knelt the first time, they will expect more. They don't understand the idea of there being a limit to what they will demand. Ask for an inch, they will take a mile, and then they want the next mile after it. This is asinine. To me, this is the height of jackassery right there. But I'm glad that we're actually seeing, oh, by the way, these guys getting reassigned. Like, okay, that's how you think your job is? You think your job right now is to walk out to places where dangerous things are happening, and they're actually violently protesting the federal building, and you think your role is to kneel down. How about this? You just got reassigned. Shabam.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
I was a little bit upset to see how out of shape those FBI agents were. So that we have FBI agents who are in.
Is there a picture of them?
Oh yeah.
Can you please bring that picture to the live screen? I've not seen it.
I'll go find him.
Go find it while I'm doing this next story, and then we'll come back to it. Just keep your jackassery button at hand. All right. Red State. Redstate.com. I hold a story in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Marco Rubio. They had a Donald Trump's administration is very transparent. They're out there all the time in the public eye. They're not hiding. They're not doing things in the back alleys. Donald Trump celebrated his first 100 days with a cabinet meeting, televised for an hour and a half. Every cabinet member made a report. One story we already knew about, he said, but it is still chilling to hear. It's when former President Joe Biden was actually spying on Americans. Listen to this. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he comes to the meeting, right? He lays out the fact that there was a department at State, where he's, of course, now the Secretary of State. There was a department at State whose job it was to comb through the personal lives and thoughts of citizens to look for what they consider to be radicalism. Marco Rubio says there's someone in the President Trump's cabinet meeting right now that was being monitored. Well, I don't know which one of the members of the cabinet it was. I suspect it was Tulsi Gabbard, because we know for a fact that she was put on a no-fly list at one point. But he said there's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier on them in that building. Can you imagine the gall of this? This is like looking back to the old, the Hoover days, or J. Edgar Hoover, building files on people in D.C. and building files on people in Hollywood. The McCarthy era, where they, called people in, and even though we don't like communism, the fact is it's still America, right? And that they were being called on the carpet to come and testify as to why they believed what they believed. And now we're finding out that under the Biden administration, that not only were they worried about censoring you, they were actually absolutely 100% on board with the idea of actually building a file on you. It's maddening. That is some serious jackassery right there. Did you find that picture? All right, so
I did.
Go ahead and put it up right now. So it'll take a few seconds before I can see it on my screen because I got a delay. But yeah, so okay, so we had a story a moment ago. How many how many of these protesters? The FBI guys were actually transferred. Do you know? Reassigned.
I do not know how many were reassigned, but there in this picture, there's like what?
Oh, there they
7
are.
or 8 of them.
Wow, there they are, actually wearing their FBI vests.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't even like they were wearing coat and tie, and then, of course, what's the one of them doing wearing the mask and she's trying to be incognito and it ain't working.
No.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So there's one in the back. You're right. I'm not sure how in the world. I don't think she's chasing anybody down anytime soon.
I would say I don't want to be mean, but you are an FBI agent. You are in there to protect me. And if you can't even pass a physical test, then I'm sorry.
I feel certain that she borrowed the vest from somebody and she's sort of cosplaying her role and she's actually like a technician or something.
I hope that's the case. It's amazing.
She's the one that brings the donuts. But the truth is, what we're looking at right now is a picture. It's up on our live stream. If you're watching it on YouTube or on any of our social media outlets or anything else, there they are, FBI agents who now, all by the way, found themselves reassigned. Too bad for their luck. There's just some things you just don't do. How about this? Protect and to serve, right? To serve. What's their motto? Serve and protect?
Serve and protect.
Serve and protect. It's hard to do that when you're on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. Here's one for you. I love the fact that there are any number of stupid things that are being repealed. Did you know, and if you listen to Rightside for any of a minute, you may have heard that Biden had a lot of green energy ideas. Biden signed, at least his auto pen did, signed a whole lot of executive orders related to green energy. Like, for instance, we had something that basically changed all the standards on your appliances. And all of a sudden, people's refrigerators, their heat pumps, their air conditioning units, their dishwashers, their clothes washers, even their toilets, even their shower heads, all these things had new certifications, labeling, and enforcing requirements. There were like 20 different household and commercial products that we install in our house that are considered an everyday part of building a new house now in America, that were regulated to the point that they were less efficient, but they were green approved. That is the Jackassery. So you can hit it now. That's the Jackassery. But the rescue is that the U.S. Senate just passed a joint resolution to repeal the standards by a margin of 52 to 46. Almost on a party line vote, but apparently we had somebody swung over. But I'm just looking at this thinking, it's amazing what we just dodged by getting out of the Biden-Harris era.
I wonder how many of the people in the Biden administration actually abided by what they were saying.
I don't know. Do you remember the video of, was it Vice President Harris? It was actually in her kitchen
I
with
was
a gas
just about
stove.
to bring that up, yes. Like, literally not like weeks or so after she said something against gas stoves, she took a picture with her and Dougie in the kitchen on a gas stove.
Yeah.
So.
And then there was the one of Chuck E. Schumer who was grilling burgers on the grill that wasn't lit, but it was a gas grill, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Jeez.
For you, but not for me.
You know, in one other piece of, hey, we dodged that bullet, a little bit of Jackassery here, Tim Walz. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, former failed candidate for vice president, has recently been going on what he calls a listening tour. Story here from 2 days ago on the New York Post. New York Post, Walz says the reason why, wait for it. Let me ask you this. I'll do it this way. JP,
Yeah.
why do you think he believes he was chosen?
Oh, it's because he could talk, the white guy code.
You heard this already?
I did.
Have you been looking at my notes?
No.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Tim Walz actually comes out and says, he uses the inside words as outside words. He comes out and says, Walz says Harris chose him in part because, quote, I could talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, put them at ease. Basically, he says he was code talking white guys. What is that even? Code talking white guys.
This is the guy that didn't even know how to shoot a gun. So
Yeah.
I don't think she chose the right guy for that.
But he knows where the air filter is under the hood of his International Scout. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even think he knows that.
Where's a baseball cap while he does it? He did serve in war. Well, not really. He carried weapons of war. Well, they weren't really weapons. You know what I'm trying to say, right? He was a soldier. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Tim Walz. That guy is such a goob. All right, listen, we're taking a break. We'll come right back. I got a little more of this Jackassery, and then we'll move towards the top of the hour. Phil Williams, Friday afternoon. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're winding down this topic, but I'm telling you right now, there are piles and piles and like piles of jackassery out there. Just saying. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. If y'all could see how fast he reached for that button.
Just call me Doc Holliday.
There you go. Just like, wow. Story here that I think needs to be touched on. No, not touched on. Needs to be browbeaten. This story needs to be like worn out, like don't let them forget what they've done, is how much the Democrats have embedded themselves into the story that this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father, who is now in prison in El Salvador, is anything but what they know him to be. They know exactly who they've got now, and yet they keep making pilgrimages down to El Salvador to have selfies done with him, and you look at it and go, my gosh, y'all. I think right now they're being trolled. I think right now, I think the Trump administration has gone ahead and said, tell you what, let's release what we've got like one day at a time. Give them a chance to hang themselves, release something else. Give them a chance to hang themselves and release something else. I don't know if you saw it, the video. They released the Tennessee State Troopers video when they pulled this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, out over, and it looked like he was human trafficking. What we're learning now is the issue was turned over to ICE under the Biden administration, and ICE chose to do nothing with it. And yet there he was with a very clear indication. All the indications were human trafficking.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that they're so out of touch. They're defending this guy.
Well, the story right now on LifeSet, Dateline 2 days ago, is that a group of 4 Democratic lawmakers are now facing scrutiny about traveling down to El Salvador to advocate for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran national who was deported from the U.S. Story on LifeSet says that Representatives Maxwell Frost of Florida, Robert Garcia, California, Maxine Dexter, Oregon, and Yasemin Ansari of Arizona traveled to El Salvador and basically stayed in luxury hotels and had a big doings of a time. A 5-star hotel at the Hilton San Salvador, known for its scenic views and luxury accommodations. The hotel features rooms with vistas of San Salvador's volcano, an outdoor terrace, and a restaurant offering made-to-order local cuisine, including pupusas and margaritas. Okay. A tranquil retreat, it says on the website. All this to say, what we're looking at here is they're being accused now of using this as a junket to get a little photo time and have a vacation on the taxpayer dime. Here's the follow-up story. I pulled this one from the Bulwark. The Bulwark, Dateline yesterday. Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, is saying he wants his Democrats to put an end to their El Salvador trips. Why? Because he knows it's jackassery. That's why. Jeffries is trying to talk it off. He's saying, our reaction is we know that Donald Trump has the lowest approval ratings of any modern president. No. But what he's also saying behind the scenes is we're told they want to let the El Salvador stuff slow down, please. He's repeatedly telling House Democrats that, we'll openly fight for release of Mr. Abrego Garcia. But at the same time, he's urging them in the background, you're doing too many favors for the Republicans by continuing to fly down there for no good reason. It's not worth the photo ops. It's not worth what it's doing to us. So basically, here's what you got. I put a film on my my social media this morning. I do a drive time, thoughts on the morning drive is what it's called. And this morning, what I said was the Democrat Party has turned into the party of no. They don't have anything. They have no policies. They have no leadership. They have no ability to project hope. They have become just the party of no Trump. And so anything that he does, there are going to be members of that party who will rush to the idea that their job in life is not to project anything that is beneficial or statesmanlike. Their job is to say no. That's all they want. And that's where they are right now. And so they've now embedded themselves so deeply in the lexicon of no that they don't know what else to do. They have boxed themselves in. They have so given in to the idea that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is somehow their hero that they are just not able to grasp what it is they're doing to themselves and their party by rushing down to El Salvador for more photo ops. Hakeem Jeffries at least gets it and is urging them in the background to please stop. Please. I just don't do it anymore. We'll see. We'll see. Photo ops are like, candy to a baby. I mean, when it comes to Democrats especially. John from Huntsville just texted in, just wondering, but is it rainy in Gadsden? Nope, it's beautiful blue skies. He said it's thunderstorming like crazy in Huntsville. Nope. He said my weather radio's already gone off like 5 times. Brother, not here.
It is gorgeous out here actually right now.
We're staring out the golf course, kind of thinking we wish we were outside.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming right back. It's Friday afternoon. You know what that means? Little JP on sports. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday. I'm saying hour number 3 on a Friday. So we do this every Friday. We take a break. We take a quick break from politics and cultural impacts and all that kind of stuff, and we talk about something else that is truly a part of the fabric of our lives, more for some than others. One of those is JP. He happens to be a guru on sports. Has his own podcast here as part of the podcast lineup at Rightside Media called Out of Right Field, and you ought to check it out. It's conservative commentary with sports as the backdrop, but he also had his own radio show for a period of time on the Ump out of Huntsville, and so yeah, we do a thing we call JP on Sports. We have 2 rounds. First is called the 3 and Out, top 3 stories he sees in sports world, followed by the 2-minute warnings, where he has 2 minutes for any topic he wants in sports, runs with it. We have a timer and a buzzer. He's also got his own very own special sound effect made by some young socialites from Auburn. Play it.
JP on Sports!
I still love that.
I do
All right.
too.
3 and Out, dude. Take the first one. What do you got?
So the NBA playoffs are in full swing right now, and we've already got some teams eliminated. The Bucks were eliminated earlier this week, so Giannis and his team were sent packing. We also had the Pistons eliminated last night against the Knicks. But the biggest one that's drawn the most attention, the Lakers were eliminated earlier this week. So LeBron and Luka Doncic are going home packing. And
LeBron and Bronny.
Yep, and Bronny too. Yeah, I forgot Bronny in the mix there. But it's started a debate now. I feel like the most belabored and high, passionate argument in the sports world over the last couple of years has been the GOAT debate between LeBron and Michael Jordan. And I feel like that's been the one that is.
There is no debate.
Yeah, I know you're gonna say that, but a bunch of kids in my generation have alluded to the fact that LeBron, all-time leading scorer now in NBA history. He's been playing for 20 years at the top. He's got 4 rings. A lot of people think that he's the GOAT. However, this is yet another time, within the last couple of years that he's been sent packing in the playoffs. So it's causing a lot of people to wonder, is this hurting his legacy? The longer he's playing, he won a ring on the Lakers, but other than that, he's been sent home early most of his time at the Lakers. So a lot of people are wondering how this is going to affect his legacy as potential GOAT of basketball. But also it came out today that he sprained his MCL in the last game that they were eliminated. So that may have, caused some things, but it's interesting. Any chance they can get to revive that debate? The old heads, not saying you're an old head, but
Did you call me an old head?
The basketball old heads.
I heard it.
Love to poke fun about LeBron and his GOAT status, and they're already out and talking after LeBron was sent home now. But we also got other great series going on. The Warriors are up 3-2 on the Rockets, excuse me. So Curry, who is also kind of in the same boat as LeBron, trying to get one more ring before he retires. It looks like he could be moving on to the next round if they handle business. But also I forgot to mention, a lot of talk as well. Is this LeBron's last season? It could be. It could be LeBron's last season. He said he wanted to play with his son Bronny, and he's already done that. He's 40-something years old, so he could be going out early, without a ring, another ring to add to his collection. So a lot of talk about that. But yep, NBA playoffs in full swing. A bunch of good games going on right now. We'll see who is going to take the trophy at the end.
All right, that's 1. What's 2?
One of the biggest stories in sports right now. I talked a little bit about this last week. I did my podcast on this as well. Shedeur Sanders and how far he slid in the NFL draft and why that is. And, of course, the people at ESPN that have no narrative other than race baiting have talked about how he was passed upon because he is this confident young black quarterback, and these old white NFL owners are scared or intimidated by him and his father. And it has driven me up a wall because, look at, the amount of black QBs in the NFL right now that are successful and rightfully so paid an extremely large amount of money because they are good leaders and they don't throw their teammates under the bus when they lose.
One of them just won the Super Bowl.
Yes, exactly. And they don't have off the field, issues where he says something in front of the media that's going to be, a problem. They're franchise guys and leaders. And unfortunately, I think Shedeur Sanders showed a lot of instances at Colorado where he was not that guy. There was one instance they lost to Nebraska, and in the post game, he made a comment about, well, how many times did Nebraska's quarterback get sacked? Pretty much throwing his O-line under the bus. And there was a story about this third string quarterback who kind of got bullied out of Colorado by Dion and Shedeur, and they came out afterwards and were kind of making fun of him in the media, talking about, why do I care what a third string cares about me? There's just a lot of instances where he was not ready to be the franchise guy, and I think that on top of bad film, bad sacks he took, led to him sliding to the 5th round. And like I said, the story's been hijacked, and people have their narratives as to why he slid so much.
So you're telling me it wasn't race?
It was not. that is the bottom line of what I'm telling you.
Oh boy!
It's not because he was this flashy, black quarterback. It is because of character issues, and be honest, he had a lot of film issues too that caused him to slide. So bottom line is, he had bad draft meetings as well. It is the narrative being thrown around by Stephen A. Smith as one, and his colleagues at ESPN has been, black quarterback slid because he's confident, and it's not the case at all. So I'm waiting to see somebody bring to light the real reason, but they're not going to get the headlines because it's not a fun story to talk about. The fun story is he was black and he slid, and that's what they're running with.
I've often found, too, that the person who does some of the things you say he did, like the throwing people under the bus, clapping back at people who would dare to say something to him, is really a sign of insecurity as opposed to. So the idea that he's the young, secure, confident black man, it may just be the opposite. He happens to be the young, insecure guy who's not ready to be a leader, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, he knows this isn't a life sentence for Shedeur. He could go on and be a Hall of Fame quarterback still, So it's not the end of his career, but obviously, people are going to jump at every instance they can, especially at ESPN.
All right, that's 2. What's 3?
So you mentioned earlier this NIL thing with an Alabama lawmaker floating up an idea for NIL to be something for high school athletes. So let me say this. All right, so the reason NIL was brought in the first place was so that kids can make money doing sponsorships, commercials. They could work in the off season and not be worried about making money. That was what it was intended to be. However, not enough guardrails were put in place by the NCAA because they were behind the 8 ball and they're incompetent, and they let it become a pay for play, which is what NIL is right now.
Yeah.
It's a pay for play. Schools pay kids to come, and it's like free agency in the NFL. The arguments that this Alabama lawmaker was making, which I was looking up earlier today, is if we can make NIL what it was intended to be in high school, then it could be a very good thing. If kids want to go and do local sponsorships, for the local restaurant or something, and do a commercial. And I saw in his bill also he's not going to let them wear school gear and all that to distance themselves from that. But his whole argument is if you make NIL what it was intended to be, it could be a good thing. My response is, yeah, but when has government ever let something what it was intended to be? There's so many cases of it not being what it was intended to be. And we could see schools like Hoover, like Thompson, where they can just pay kids to come play at their school and the rich become richer. So I would say I'm against the bill for that reason of it's not going to be what it's intended to be. I understand what he's saying. I understand that, if we can do it the right way, it won't be an issue. I don't know. Do you have high hopes that it would be done the right way if it was brought into play? It's not going to.
Yeah.
Schools like I mentioned it's just going to be a college duplicate. So it's interesting idea, but I don't think it's a good idea. But also talking about NIL, the story just broke about 30 minutes ago. Apparently, Saban may have convinced Trump to do an executive order on NIL to some extent. So I'm curious to see what that executive order would be and how it would help things. But Tuberville was saying he was hoping to get a meeting with Saban and Trump when he was down here. Maybe he did and was able to win Trump over on that. So maybe we can see some actual leadership with all this.
That would be amazing, and I think that's what it's going to take, because I think NIL is now, it's the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Oh yeah,
it's going to take somebody with a strong personality who could care less what somebody else thinks about him, who's willing to go down hard roads. And the only person I can think of with the clout to do that not just the desire, but the clout is going to wind up being Trump.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe he listened to Saban, and he respected what he had to say. I don't know. It's something needs to be done. So we'll see if the executive order can do anything, and if he does it.
All right, that's 3 and out. Okay,
Yep.
3 and out, round 1. JP on sports. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back. 2-minute warning. Yeah, I got a timer and we got a buzzer. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, we are in a thing we call JP on Sports. And yeah, every Friday afternoon we do this. He's got 2 rounds. The first one he already did, called the 3 and Out. The second one is called the 2-minute warning. I've got a stopwatch and a timer, and we actually run 2 minutes on any topic. Buzzer sounds if he runs over. 2 minutes, go.
So this may have been the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Here we go.
I don't know if you saw this story with Bill Belichick and his girlfriend.
My gosh.
So Bill Belichick did an interview with, I believe it was ABC.
There's bizarre on several levels here.
Yes. So everybody knows Bill Belichick has a girlfriend much, much younger than him. And I wish the story stopped there. But
Can we say like 50 years younger?
Oh, like a lot younger. I wish the story stopped there. However, it looks like that she's becoming like his assistant or controls everything in his life.
Yeah.
And UNC, North Carolina has actually had to tell Bill to tell his girlfriend to back off because she's gone into places and areas that they don't feel comfortable with her going to. She doesn't really have access to. But this interview got really weird really fast when the interview decided to ask Bill Belichick about how him and his girlfriend met. And she decides to speak up and say, we're not talking about that.
She's not even on the set. She's off to the side.
She's off to the side, and she's crouching down, and it has this crazy look on her face. And apparently, too, she stormed out of the interview at one point expecting Belichick to follow her, and he did not. So I don't know. I'm worried about Coach Belichick. I'm worried that Coach Belichick has gotten himself into something. I don't know. I mean, there's stories all the time about older guys like Belichick dating younger women, but this is much more than that. I'm worried that she's taking control and going to lead him down a road where it's going to end up in disaster, which would be really sad to see. I mean, the greatest NFL coach of all time being embarrassed like this in public is not a good look. So who knows? But also there's indicators that he doesn't know that all these embarrassing pictures of him and her at the beach aren't public. He doesn't know that they're on social media, and maybe she's posting these without his consent too. It's a mess.
I just have to believe he's got more social adeptness than that. Is that a word, adeptness? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
he's more socially adept than that.
Who knows, man? He knows. But all I'm saying is somebody's got to help Bill. You know, Saban and Belichick are best friends. Saban, if for some reason you hear this, which I doubt it, but if you do, save your friend Bill, please.
Yeah, what you said yesterday, we were in the studio, and you said, Coach, blink twice if you need help.
Blink twice if you need help.
All right, that's 2 minutes. Let me clear the clock. Ready? Next 2 minutes, go.
Kentucky Derby is this weekend.
Yes, it is.
It's one of the
lovely Charlene used to work there sometimes.
Really? Yeah,
she did.
It's one of the most fun things I like to watch is the Kentucky Derby, but for this reason, because I love the horse names. So I'll just tell you the best odds to win the Kentucky Derby this weekend. The 3-1 odds, the favorite. His name's Journalism.
His name is Journalism?
Journalism is his name.
He's not fake news. He's journalism.
Nope, he is Journalism. And number 2 behind him is Sovereignty with 5-1 odds. And then we also got Sandman with 6-1 odds is the third highest horse. But apparently the horse to look out for, the dark horse, no pun intended. I mean, that's literally what that means. Burnham Square with 12-1 odds has been one of the bigger betting favorites among that isn't in the more favorites. So people are telling everybody to look out for Burnham Square, but I don't know. It's normally never the horse that's expected to win. I feel like the favorite is never the one that wins. So who knows? Journalism may not be.
Sometimes you get a triple crown.
That's true. You do get a triple crown sometimes, but I don't know. Journalism may not be in the best of luck if he's the favorite.
So Charlene is a Louisville girl, and I won't take too much of your time, but she grew up, and derby parties are a big deal up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they eat chips with Benedictine, and they wear big hats, and they have big doings, and it's a cultural local thing. It's kind of like Mardi Gras in New Orleans. It's a thing.
That's on my bucket list of sporting events to attend to. WrestleMania is up there. Kentucky Derby is also up there.
Brother, you are diverse.
Yeah, I am. I'm all UFC fight is also up there too. So there you go.
Super Bowl? You been to a Super Bowl yet?
I've never been to a Super Bowl, but I mean, after my Falcons blew 28-3 lead, I'm kind of scared about Super Bowls.
All right, you came in under time. No buzzer on that one. Reset the clock. 2 minutes. Go.
Stephen A. Smith, this story, I brought it up a couple of times, but his presidential flirtings, I don't know if you saw this, but he was actually, he had an instance where he was on sort of a panel with Cuomo and, forgive me, what is the station Cuomo works at now?
CNN? It was CNN.
Is it News Nation?
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's News Nation.
News Nation. He was up there on a panel, and they had Trump on the phone, and we're talking to him about other things. But Stephen A. Smith was there, and Trump actually encouraged Stephen A. Smith to run for president. I don't know if you saw this, but Trump said that the Democratic Party could use Stephen A. Smith, and he could hopefully save them from the mess they're in. Complimented his entertainment abilities, which said are very important in the presidential race, and pretty much gave him like resounding compliments to run for president, where Stephen A. Smith obviously was sitting there trying to act like he wasn't flattered. But I don't know. This story, I feel like it's more interesting by the day because, he initially said he wasn't going to run. Then he said he's not ruling it out. And now we got this Trump, I wouldn't say endorsement, but, encouragement to run. Could we see Stephen A. Smith eventually throw his hat in the ring? And what odds do we think he would win if he did?
I see the ticket right now. It's Smith-Saban.
Smith-Saban. Oh, my gosh. Smith and Shaq or Barkley. I don't know. I think it's funny. I think it's an interesting story, though, because his polling numbers aren't terrible for what you would think for a political outsider like that. It would be something to watch. Can you imagine an AOC and Stephen A. Smith presidential debate in the primaries? That would be quite something. So I don't know. I don't know if he'll run, but I think it is getting more interesting. The Stephen A. Smith presidential flirtings with Trump now throwing his take in there.
That would be a hoot, but that is also not unheard of because Donald Trump himself was an entertainer.
Exactly.
With opinions.
Exactly. And he was an outsider, so who knows?
And there's your buzzer. All right, so do we have time? What do we got? We got time for one?
Sure.
Take it, man. I'll run the clock. Go.
We got Braves-Dodgers this weekend. The Braves have been digging themselves out of the hole they put themselves into. They've won 12 of their last 14, so they're inching closer to 500 after that 0-7 start to the year. Which like I said last week, the Braves were one of the favorites to win the World Series this year, so it was unheard of for them to start like that. But they're coming back. But the big factor is Ronald Acuna Jr., the former MVP, the Braves superstar, will be coming back late May. It was announced today. So while the Braves are starting to get some momentum and getting back to 500, they could be getting their superstar back. So it could change everything.
All right, and he came in under time. Good enough. Hey, that's it. JP on sports. Good job, man. All right, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming right back, you're going to want to hear what Stephen Miller had to say. That man can dismantle a press pool like nobody I've ever heard. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. I mean, it goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we now get to call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, that's just the radio, which is cool. In fact, I'll tell you what, interesting thing, just a little while ago, we had Matthew from Washington checking in. Matthew, I hope you're still listening. Just so you know, Natalie was in today. She just sent out your packages. So you got your stuff coming. And the other package she just sent out today was to Missouri. So yeah, I'd say our listening area is rather broad. Glad of it. Thank you very much, all of y'all right-side ruffians out there. So I'm going to jump into my third dipper, and I'm going to tell you right now, parts of this dipper are going to be consumed by hearing from Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, who right now is the Deputy Chief of Staff to the White House for the presidency. And by the way, a news story a little while ago was saying it's breaking that he is also in one of the top considerations to replace Michael Waltz as National Security Advisor. But Stephen Miller can dismantle the press. I think the only other person out there only people who dismantle the press more than him might be Tom Homan and Donald Trump himself. Everybody else in that administration does a pretty good job of answering the mail, if you know what I'm saying. But Stephen Miller, brings a hacksaw when he gets going. He literally can unload. Well, the topic right now is alien enemies. So the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is the legislation that was passed by Congress, signed by the president in 1798. Was that James Madison? I got to remember who that was now as the president. But it's a law that allows the president in extreme situations to declare certain people here on U.S. soil to be alien enemies of the state because of their role against the United States. And then they have less opportunities for due process. They're treated more like POWs or enemy combatants. And he did that, President Trump did, using that existing law, which has been used 3 times in U.S. history, although I will say they were not all in 1798. You had 1798, you had the War of 1812, and you had World War II. Now we have Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and the Mexican drug cartels. What president was it? I saw you look it up.
John Adams.
John Adams. Thank you, sir. So yesterday we got the word that another judge has stepped in and said, Trump can't do Trump stuff. So basically, a U.S. District Court judge named Fernando Rodriguez is the first judge to now rule the Alien Enemies Act cannot be used against people the Republican administration claims are gang members invading the U.S. Story that I pulled it off of was from the AP. Dateline last night. You may recall that the Supreme Court of the United States already heard the issue, but they didn't answer it in full. What they said was anyone deported has to have some measure of due process, which meant that the Trump administration was stuck with having to do some measure of hearings or provide notice. That's what it was, notice, as opposed to just shipping them out. This judge has said, one step further, since the Supreme Court didn't rule on that part, I consider it gray. I interpret the law to be something that the president cannot invoke. Cannot invoke. Said clearly, the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act through the proclamation exceeds the scope of the statute and is contrary to the plain, ordinary meaning of the statute's terms. I disagree. If that is the standard by which we go, then ISIS is allowed to set up training camps here on U.S. soil. You can go ahead and say that, Al-Qaeda can now go ahead and rent office space in New York City despite the fact that they flew planes into our buildings. It's okay because they're not geographic. They're a ideological-based entity of terror who owns no geography, has no government, but they are an organization nonetheless, the same as Tren de Aragua, the same as MS-13, and the same, oh, by the way, as the drug cartels out of Mexico. But this judge says, no, you can't do that. Senator Marco Rubio wrote a piece. It's under his name. It's an op-ed that came out. I've got a copy of it from Fox News, Dateline this morning. He said, when the Founding Fathers drafted the Aliens Act of 1798, they intended it to act as an antibody against foreign armies, criminal networks, and individuals who sought to do America harm. They understood something we've forgotten. Every nation has not just a right to act in self-defense, but a duty to do so. When a nation neglects that duty, it risks becoming a haven for vile criminal elements from across the globe and a battleground in other nations' conflicts. No nation, he said, is obligated to harbor foreign criminals from justice in their own home nation. Well, enter the question once again of Abrego Garcia. White House press room. Stephen Miller. He was standing there next to Caroline Leavitt because apparently he'd been asked to come in and provide some commentary as the Deputy Chief of Staff. And one of the members of the press decided to open the floor to the question of Abrego Garcia. I'm going to play you a little bit more than I normally would, all right? I'm going to play you roughly 2 minutes of Stephen Miller just bringing a bludgeon to the members of the press. Then we're going to break and talk about it for a second, and then we're going to go back and hear another 2 minutes because, y'all, this is worth hearing. Play it.
And then one on Abrego Garcia, please. The administration is reportedly inquiring about his return. Is that to check a box for compliance, or does President Trump want him back on U.S. soil, or both?
So, as Secretary Rubio said yesterday in the cabinet meeting, this administration is not going to publicly discuss the inside details of our foreign policy and negotiations with a foreign country. And in particular, we are not going to allow a district court judge to try to become the Secretary of State. Secretary Rubio is the one who, under his leadership and direction at the State Department, is managing the day-to-day relationship with El Salvador. Let's just take a moment, number one, to express our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take some of the most dangerous terrorists off of America's streets and to put them into a safe environment where they cannot continue to engage in acts of terrorism or coordination with the Maduro regime. You may have seen recently an FBI assessment that was unclassified that said that the Maduro regime is using and planning to use trained Aragua terrorists to carry out assassination plots on American soil. Now, very few in this room covered that. I'll let you all ask yourselves why you didn't cover it and why your editors didn't assign that story to you.
Here we go.
Something I think you should think about on your own. But this is a earth-shattering piece of news. The Biden administration imported a terrorist army that our own FBI assesses is planning assassination strikes on American soil against critics of the Maduro regime. Those are the terrorists that President Trump is finding and apprehending that our Democrat judges and Democrat activists are trying to keep on U.S. soil. Train de Aragua has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. MS-13 has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These are foreign terrorists operating on our soil. And our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take custody of these terrorists is immense.
So first of all, I love the fact that the Deputy Chief of Staff has been saying what I've been saying for weeks, is that Al-Qaeda, ISIS, it's the same thing. They're terrorist entities. They don't have to be a foreign country. However, he also just wore them out on anecdotal information that was legit about what happens when the administration before him just opens wide the door and you find out that a foreign nation that does hate us used that proxy. This is like Hezbollah or Hamas. Used that proxy to go do its badness, all right? To go do the things that it wasn't going to do on the world stage, but it knew that it was trying. So Tren de Aragua is what he's saying, is here with assassination plans from the Maduro regime. And yet the judge says we can't send them home. That is asinine. Go ahead and get that second one queued up to the three. Okay, you got it? All right, I tell you what, this is one of the best moments of any presser that I've watched in forever. Let's go ahead and listen to Stephen Miller a little bit more as he talks about the topic at hand, in alien enemies. Go ahead.
Due process to two trained de Aragua terrorists that were apprehended at the border just a couple years ago. They were two gentlemen. They were from Venezuela. They were members of Train de Aragua. The Biden administration Border Patrol apprehended them and made the decision to provide them with extensive due process, put them onto a program known as supervised release, and put them on ankle monitors so that they could go through a lengthy legal judicial determination as to whether these legal aliens who had just set foot on U.S. soil might want to live in the United States for the rest of their lives. What was the result of that decision? What was the result of that choice that was made? Those two men kidnapped a young girl named Jocelyn Ungary from her family. They beat her, they sexually assaulted her, they tortured her, they stripped her, they murdered her, and they dumped her body. That is what the Biden administration's policy was. Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or Tren de Aragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
My God. Was that not epic? Or, I mean, listen, there are members of the press who just sat there not knowing what to do because they just got excoriated on national TV. I mean, and he's so right. I didn't hear anything he said that I would disagree with. I mean, nothing. And I love the fact that he brought it home. Not a single one of you could be paid to live in a neighborhood if you were told that these people you're trying to vouch for right now was your neighbor. Just saying. And so yeah, this was a moment, in my opinion. This was a watershed moment in the press room. I don't know that we've seen anything like that. And it was also one of those that, you remember the past, like we had the whole situation with, Jim Acosta, who would interrupt and yell at the president and want to know more and ask belligerent questions and all that kind of stuff. I think what's happened is the media landscape has been forced to change, and people who were not allowed in the room before are now allowed in the room. And so the other members of the media are now behaving themselves because they recognize they've got peers who will take them out back and whoop them later if they don't do it right. That's just my perspective.
You talked about the point of him bringing up these reporters wouldn't live next to the guys like Kilmore, Abrego, Garcia,
No.
but that is the entire, and I mentioned it earlier about the, even stuff like the gas stoves or whatever, like they're constantly, from their ivory towers or from up above, whatever, like you do this, a good person would do this and let this person in. But if they had to live next to him,
No,
they would feel the exact same.
Yeah.
So that I think that's why they're losing the Democrat Party is losing touch with the common citizen on this, because
They're going to fly their private jet,
Yep.
cook on their gas stoves, and advocate for illegal aliens and make us lump it.
Exactly. And the common citizens don't want to live next to those people, but the Democratic Party doesn't grasp that, apparently.
Take me to a break, JP. I got to calm down. All right, you guys. It's Friday afternoon. We'll come right back, get a few text messages. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world. One soundbite at a time. Bulletproof influence. All the truth you can put on a bumper sticker. Pulling pins on truth grenades. Yes, indeed, and making common sense like a superpower. So I got several text messages, and I'll go right to the phones. Tammy from Aniana said, "Who was the person y'all just got through playing? That was Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff." So yeah, you can look up the video if you want to. Actually, do we have that linked to the resources? Do you know? All right, it is not linked to the resources, but you can look it up on online. Just look up Stephen Miller.
I can link it right now if y'all want.
On the website? Mm-hmm. All right. So, yeah. So, Tammy, if you want to see it, we have a section on the rightsidemedia.org website where all of our live stream stuff is, and you can, watch the show, call the show, and all the resources for the show. Like when you hear me rattling paper, they're all linked on there, and JP is going to put the link to that video up for you so you'll have it. Dave from Capshaw says, "I like me some JP on sports." And
thank you. Appreciate it.
And then he also said Bill Belichick and Joe Biden had the same problem, younger women controlling them.
Unfortunately, yes.
Lynn from Tanner heard the Stephen Miller audio and said, "I was driving with my toes after that speech. I gave him a standing ovation while driving my car." Wow. Awesome. Thanks, Lynn. And then Fritzy from Huntsville points out the weather up there is awful, and we just looked at the radar. It's going to be here pretty soon where we are in northeast Alabama, so you guys be careful on the road. Speaking of careful on the road, let me go to the guy on the road. That'd be Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not on the road.
You're not on the road. You've been eating ribs today.
Yes, they were very good.
Were those dry rub ribs, or did you just have sauce on the side?
Oh, no, dry rub ribs from Pappy's, voted on Food Network for the best ribs in America.
Really?
And they were very good.
Lord, I love me some dry rub ribs. That's one of my favorite things.
And in St. Louis, where you can actually get St. Louis-style ribs.
Yeah. Well, good enough.
Right.
What do you think about all this stuff, man? What do you think about what we talked about today?
I think that President Trump should take one page out of Joe Biden's presidency.
Stop it. What?
Tell judges that, I don't care what you say. Screw you. I'm going to do what I want to do.
We're about there, aren't we? Alien Enemies Act.
Needs to be,
good Lord.
There needs to be a way. If a judge can hold you in contempt of court, I think you should be able to hold the judge in contempt of the presidency, the executive branch, because that's what it is. It's contempt.
It is.
It really is. What's good for one, one branch can try to take over another one. The other one should be able to say, go pound sand.
Well,
and we're going to do this anyway.
I hope that sometime soon we're going to find the Supreme Court of the United States stepping in, going, stop the madness. That's the only way it's going to stop. We're not going to be able to impeach them because all they're doing is ruling ways we don't want. We're not going to be able to arrest them because they haven't technically broken a crime unless we can find out they took a bribe. So what we're going to have is some kind of legal precedent that puts them in their place and says, stop with the nationwide injunctions on matters that you should have recused yourself from.
Yeah. I mean, judges technically, as far as I can tell, have no power to enforce their rulings on the executive branch because the executive branch is in charge of enforcing the rules. So I don't know how you would how do you enforce somebody? How do you enforce the enforcer? Whether you don't have an enforcement powers.
I get it, man. Part of what they're doing is working the system, but working that system has got to go a little faster because the people are getting tired of it, and rightfully so. Hey, dude, we're about 25 seconds away from the end of the time, but we'll talk to you Monday. Be careful on the road when you do, all right?
All right, man. You have a good weekend.
See you, buddy.
Enjoy me some Budweiser.
Nice. See you, bud. All right, well, listen, the weather is what it is right now. We got weather coming and going through the weekend, but stay tuned because we got plenty to do with Rightside Media coming up next week. We should have some announcements for you. We hope to lay some things out to tell you where we're going next. But that being said, do not forget as you head into this weekend, there are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you Monday.